Hi everyone, I hope you're all having a great day so far. So today for math, we are going to be starting on page 301, and this is lesson 8.8. So we're going to be talking about sides of quadrilaterals. And here are vocab words. We can see we have quadrilateral, adjacent, and opposite. So if we look at these quadrilaterals, the first thing we know is that quadrilaterals have 4 sides. And the way we can remember that is that the prefix quad actually means 4. So we know quad means 4, and lateral actually means sides. So the word itself really means 4 sides. So quadrilaterals, we know, have to have 4 sides. Okay, so now if we look down here, it says, in all of the quadrilaterals, the sides labeled A and B are adjacent to each other. The sides labeled B and C are also adjacent to each other. So if we look at A and B, and then we look at B and C, we can see that these are next to each other, and they're meeting at a point. So A and B, they're next to each other because they're meeting at this point. And same thing with B and C, they're meeting at this point right here. Again, if we looked at this one, it'd be the same thing. If you look at A and B, they're meeting at this point, so these sides are next to each other. And the same thing with B and C, they're meeting at this point here. So our question is, what do you think it means for 2 sides to be adjacent? So we can write 2 sides are adjacent if they meet at a point. So 2 sides are adjacent if they meet at a point. So we look at number 2, it asks us which other sides are adjacent to each other. So we know A and B are adjacent, and we know B and C are adjacent. So other sides that we know are adjacent would be, if we look at C and D, we can see that C and D meet at this point right here. So C and D are also adjacent. So for number 2, we could write sides C and D. And we can also see that we have one more set of sides that are adjacent to each other. Because if we look at A and D, we can see that they meet at this point right here. So if we look at A and D, we can see that they're meeting right here. So sides C and D, and we can write sides A and D. Okay, so now for this one, it says, in all of the quadrilaterals, the sides labeled A and C are opposite of each other. So if we look at A and C in all of these, we can see that they're opposite of each other. So what do you think it means for 2 sides to be opposite of each other? So if we look at A and C, we can see that if 2 sides are opposite of each other, it means that they're across from each other or that they don't meet at a point. So these 2 sides would never meet at a point. So for number 3, we can write 2 sides are opposite if they are across from each other, or if they do not meet at a point. So 2 sides are opposite if they are across from each other and do not meet at a point. So number 4 asks us which other sides are opposite each other. So we know A and C are opposite of each other. We can also see that B and D are opposite of each other. So we could write sides B and D, because in all of these, B and D would be across from each other. Okay, so now for page 302, this says, identify types of quadrilaterals. And our vocab words here are trapezoid, parallelogram, and rhombus. So it says some quadrilaterals are special because they have parallel sides or right angles. So parallel sides or right angles. You already know about rectangles and squares. Other types of quadrilaterals are the trapezoid, parallelogram, and rhombus. So you can list each type and describe its sides and angles. So here we just have a quadrilateral and it's showing us 4 sides and 4 angles. So now if we look at the parallelogram, it says 4 sides, 2 pairs of opposite sides parallel. So we know that these 2 sides are parallel and these 2 sides are parallel. If you look at a rhombus, it says 2 pairs of opposite sides. So we know that these 2 are opposite and that they're parallel, and that we have 4 equal sides. So all 4 of these sides are equal. If we look at the rectangle, we have 4 sides, 2 pairs of opposite sides parallel. So we know that these are parallel and that these are parallel. And we also know that we have 4 right angles. So we know a rectangle has 4 right angles. And then if we look at a square, we know a square has 4 sides, 2 pairs of opposite sides parallel, so these 2 and these 2. And then we know a square also has 4 right angles, and that a square has 4 equal sides. So now if we look at the trapezoid, we know we have 4 sides, and we have exactly 1 pair of opposite sides parallel. So in both of these trapezoids, we can see that these 2 sides and these 2 sides are parallel, but these 2 and these 2 are not parallel because these are the same distance apart, but we can see these are not the same distance apart. And these, if we were to extend it, they would eventually cross over each other, but we know that these would not cross over each other and that they're the same distance apart. And it's the same thing with this one. So now we could quickly just take a chart like this and we can check off the characteristics that each of these quadrilaterals have. So we know that all of these have 4 sides because they are all quadrilaterals. We know that a parallelogram has 2 pairs of opposite sides parallel. We know that a rectangle has, if you look at the rectangle, we have 2 pairs of opposite sides parallel and then 4 right angles. We know a rhombus has 2 pairs of parallel sides and 4 equal sides. And then the square has all of these because it has 4 sides, 2 pairs of parallel sides, 4 right angles, and 4 equal sides. And then the trapezoid, we know it does not have, it only has 1 pair of parallel sides. It does not have 2. And then we know that these don't have right angles or equal sides. So now looking at this and looking at our pictures here, we can see a few different things. We can see that a parallelogram and a rectangle, so if we look at a parallelogram and a rectangle, we can see that they're pretty similar, but the difference is a rectangle has 4 right angles, while a parallelogram does not have 4 right angles. And if we look at a parallelogram and a rhombus, we can see that the difference is that a rhombus has 4 equal sides, while a parallelogram does not. So that's the difference between these two. A rhombus has 4 equal sides, while a parallelogram does not have 4 equal sides. And we also know that rectangles and squares are very similar, except that the square has to have 4 equal sides. So they both have 2 pairs of parallel sides and 4 right angles, but in order for it to be a square, it needs to have 4 equal sides. Okay, so that's about it for today. There will be an assignment posted on Google Classroom for you to do to practice identifying these quadrilaterals. All right, thank you everyone. Have a great day.